welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast. We have made it to the 10th episode of the podcast. This week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be looking at a specific game, but rather we're going to look at a couple of puzzles. Now this is a type of exercise that many grandmasters are very capable of. They do these types of studies in their head all the time, where I will be giving you the location of the pieces on the board. I will give you a moment to figure it out, and then we will go over the solution together. So this may be a bit of a challenge to start with, but I'm sure we can figure it out. So if we're ready, let's start with puzzle number 1. In this puzzle, white will have a king on b7, white will have a rook on a4, white will have a rook on h8, black will have a king on e3, and it is white to move. I'll give you a couple of seconds to figure out the solution, and then we will proceed.
Solution 1. Rook to h3 check. King f2. Two. Rook a2 check. King g1. 3. Rook b3. King f1. 4. Rook b1 checkmate.
This type of pattern is called a ladder mate because you're sort of stepping on the rungs of the ladder as you work your way down the board. This works with rooks and or with queens, just as long as you are cutting the king off and working them down the board. But that first one wasn't too bad, was it? Now we're going to move on to a slightly more difficult puzzle. This is a classic endgame puzzle demonstrating the capability of passed pawns. White has a king on a2, black has a king on c1, white has pawns on f5, g5, and h5, and black has pawns on f7, g7, and h7. I'll give you just a moment to figure this one out.
Solution 1. Pawn g6. Pawn f captures g6.
It is worth noting that it does not matter if black captures with the h-pawn or the g-pawn, as the same idea still applies.
2. Pawn to h6. 3. Pawn to f6.
And there is no way for black to stop the runaway pawn at this point. If black were to have taken the other way, we would have played h6, and black could not stop that one either.
Pawn g5. 4. Pawn to f7. Pawn g4. 5. Pawn g8 equals queen. White has a winning advantage.
I like this puzzle quite a bit. It demonstrates that you can give up material in the endgame in order to get a passed pawn and to promote said passed pawn. Sometimes that could be the difference between a win or a loss is whoever wins that pawn race. Now for the hard puzzle, we can sort of mark this as homework where you can try to figure it out on your own due to the number of variations that can be involved. White has a king on h8. White has a pawn on c6. Black has a pawn on h5. And black has a king on a6. This one is white to move and draw. And if you would like to look it up, it is Reti's position. This is a shorter episode this week, but it does involve a lot more calculation, so we will leave it there. I will be attaching a video into the podcast notes of Grandmaster Wesley So solving these types of puzzles without access to a board. So until then, I will see you next week where we will resume going over games from the masters of the past and the present.